Oh, I don't even have my charger.
Do you need it?
Don't know.
Do I need it? Right, everyone's here.
So if you click on that Zoom
Very
link,
good.
it'll just let you already check my phone and ask you for a meeting ID.
And they're trying
And then
to
if you
keep
pay something, anyway.
remote so you can see. I'm 44%.
Have we got enough money to share? Give them more money? No, we don't.
I've put them in $10 lots. But we could give them 12 potentially.
We could give them more.
Yeah, true. No, that's gonna.
Keith could tell us where he wants to put it.
Yeah, true.
He could phone us and tell us
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he wants it.
Yeah. Okay.
Phone a friend.
Phone a friend, yeah.
I'll find you an alternative link and I'll
Just right.
You right there?
He's disappeared.
Oh, why?
When you click on it though, does it open something maybe just like your bar down the bottom?
Yeah.
I know, did you do this one?
How
do I get-
that too?
Okay. Oh, yours is so long. I'll have it emailed to you in the next 2 minutes.
So that we're going to get started.
Okay. Sounds good.
No worries.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Fielding, I thought Fox.
Ah, I'm clearly going to have to. No, I can't get on to
Is it Easter?
any Wi-Fi other than
No, so this goes.
no. Like I couldn't get on at home, which was very annoying.
Yeah.
We're just speaking nicely of you.
Where's it going?
Yeah.
Got the new
Has she
rugby
got
belt.
family and stuff around there? She kind of
Okay, team, we'll get underway. I think we're busy trying to get Keith online, so hopefully he'll be online joining us soon. Where's Nigel disappeared off to? Oh, down the back there.
Oh, so they're there.
But she's,
No, I
she said to me the other day,
So that's what.
nearly done 10 years with her parents here. Time
Right.
to move on.
Oh, she's got a brother there.
So obviously we have got our guests today, Tanya and Glenn, who need no introduction. So I will pass across for them to get us started. Welcome.
Thank you. Ina mana, ina reo, ira rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko tāniu kua hau. So today I'm here as chair of the Regional Sports Park Trust. Just a couple of things. Driving in this morning, as many of you know, I live up the Napier Taupo Road. Driving in this morning, may I say, the weather you've put on, the sea was glistening, your city was looking stunning. Went and had a coffee next door at Ocean Spa. Just felt really special. So well done. And the other thing is, well, I'm assuming you put it on for us. The other thing is, I don't know if Keith's online, but our love and support to Keith. And we're going to give you a little bit of money to spend. I won't take too much away from what Glenn's going to speak of, but I thought we might chat to Keith about how he wants to invest his money. But thank you very much for having us, and I will hand over to Glenn.
Okay. Are you going to hear me okay if I'm not speaking into this?
The people online will need you to be speaking into that.
Okay, so I need to be sitting down. Okay, all right.
It will probably still pick up
Or
your
leaning
voice.
forward.
If you point it upwards, you're right.
You might be right.
Okay, we'll stay here then. So today we've got an agenda for you. So there's a little bit of one-way information, but we're going to try to keep that to a minimum because the key focus of today is really getting your input to our master plan. But we're going to spend a little bit of time on who we are and what we do as Masterplan Park or Hawke's Bay Regional Sports Park Trust. What does this have to do with NCC, which is a valid question. The master plan part 2, which is the big piece of strategic work that we're just about to embark on, and this input today is really going to help us to point the master plan in the right direction. Then getting your input into the plan, and at the end, a bit of a wrap-up and questions. So prefer this to be quite informal, so if you've got any questions as we go, just stick your hand up or fire them at Tanya and I, and we'll do our very best to answer them.
And my apologies, I should have also acknowledged our Deputy Chair of the Sports Park Trust. It's a young fella sitting there. My
Conflict of
apologies.
interest.
Oh, we've got a cunning plan for you, so my
Yeah, no.
apologies, Graham, but just acknowledge the work that you do with us.
So yeah, just emphasising that today is about your input to the plan. The music's recognised. Okay, so that was just a bit of a visual look at some of the things that have been going on in the park. Most of those videos have been taken since I started there, so it just gives you a picture of the variety, I guess, of the events and the things that we hold there, ranging from community sport to to community events to high performance type events. So there's a real range of things going on at the park. Now, some of you will be more familiar to the park than others, so but I do want to go over a little bit because there might be some things that you're aware of, but some that you're not. So we'll spend a little bit of time on a bit of a profile of the park. So visitation to the park is a hard thing to measure because there's a lot of informal visits, but we're looking at around about at least 820, I'm missing a zero there, visitors per year.
So 820,000.
820,000, correct. And just over the last year, this year and last year, these are the type of events that we've had and visitation that we've had. So we've had Diwali, we had Unison Gala Switch Day, we had the Oceania Canoe Polo Champs at the end of last year. We hosted a Ranfurly Shield game with McLean Park out of action a couple of weeks ago. Christmas in the Park this year, which is shared between the two of us, so this year's our turn. Mitre 10 Cuff Kids that have been at the park for 10 years now, and 1,500 participants this year. Potts Classic we have every year, which is a high-level athletics meet in January. Weet-Bix Triathlon finally made it to our facility this year after 3 years of COVID and cyclone cancellation, so that was fantastic. We're the home of women's rugby in Hawke's Bay, including the home of the Tui. Colgate Games we're hosting at the start of next year, which is probably the biggest athletics event in terms of participation. It's a kids athletics event that's coming in January. Waitangi Day this year had close to 17,000 attendees, so that was a big event. And Matariki just a few weeks ago was absolutely huge given the weather and the other cancellations. So that was a little chaotic but awesome. And yes, okay.
Back in 2006, 2007, Hastings Council sold the William Nelson athletics track and rugby field. There was a grandstand there as well, and part of that, the sale of that, was a arrangement with the community that many of those funds were going to be spent elsewhere. So Hastings Council went and purchased this land and is now the landowner only of the sports, where the sports park is. it created a sports park trust, and the sports park trust has been operating all of the facilities and leasing the land of the council.
Okay, so this is just the timeline of, I guess, the key developments since the trust and the park was established in 2007. So I won't read through that one because that's exactly what Tanya just told you about. But the trust was established in 2008. The first asset that was established on the park was the athletics track, and a few years later the grandstand was completed. The netball courts were built in 2011, then the Unison Hockey Stadium completed a year later. We hosted the International Festival of Hockey for 3 years, I think, in 2014. Mitre 10 Tough Kids we first had 10 years ago. The other trust on the park, the Hawke's Bay Community Fitness Centre Trust, was established in 2016. We hosted Te Matatini. The park was renamed Kahanunu Park for the month of the event, which was a huge event. Waitangi Day celebrations were first hosted there in 2019. The Institute of Sport and Health in Royston Gym opened same year. The facility was renamed Mitre 10 Park under a sponsorship, name and right sponsorship agreement that goes for 10 years. The canoe polo facility, which is amazing, by the way. If you guys haven't seen it, it's fantastic and so busy. The New Zealand Track and Field Championships were hosted over 2 years during COVID. The original start of the Masterplan, which I'll go through in a little bit, was commenced in 2021. The Sir Graham Avery Hostel opened in 2022, which has really added to the breadth of things that we have in the park and has really, I guess, emphasised our position as one of the key regional sport and recreation facilities in New Zealand. The pool, the regional aquatic centre was completed in 2022, so that's been open just over 2 years. First time hosting Christmas in the park. Home venue for 2 women's rugby team, cricket training facilities, which you saw in the video, and the Giants boxing gym was completed in 23. The northern block was purchased by HDC, which I'll go into a little bit later as well. And we hosted the Oceania Canoe Polo Champs at the end of last year. Webbix Triathlon, New Zealand Swimming Champs and New Zealand Age Group Swimming Champs hosted, and the master plan was recommenced. So really that's just a bit of a summary of the key things that have happened during the, since the park's been there. But you can see towards the end of it, it's a really nice representation of how the amount of developments over the last 5 years, and particularly the capital build, the park has just gone, huge. And that success and that growth has been fantastic, and it really is, it's a pretty stunning asset that we've got now, but that growth has also created some of the issues that need to be addressed through the master plan right now. And top of that list is parking and infrastructure and wayfinding and that sort of thing. Okay, so what does this have to do with NCC? And it's a good question, and you'll be pleased to know that we're not coming with our hand out for some operational funding, unless you've got some spare cash floating around that you want to throw our way. So I guess first and foremost, the Hawke's Bay Regional Sports Park, or Mitre 10 Park, is a regional facility providing regional sports and recreation and events experience for the people of Hawke's Bay. So it's another one of those regional assets like PGA, like Park Island, like McLean Park, that, it's not just a Hastings or a Napier thing, it's a regional thing. It's also part of the interrelated system of facilities that together enable Hawke's Bay community to participate in sport and recreation. So the last thing that we want to do with our growth is to duplicate anything that's already existing. So we really want to complement the entire network. It doesn't benefit anyone to cut someone else's lunch and build something that we've already got. So the regional picture of facilities is critically important to our growth and everybody's growth, really, and where we invest our money on these facilities, which aren't cheap. The way that the park has developed and the assets that are on the park means that we've got a unique ability to attract a certain type of events to Hawke's Bay. Obviously the athletics type events, we've got the swimming events, that kind of thing, but also many other different types of events that we can hold given what we've got on the park. Those events can contribute quite a lot to economic vibrancy, and I know Kevin will sit and probably has told you that many times. So any event hosted in the Hawke's Bay has benefits for Napier, for Hastings, and potentially for the other areas in Hawke's Bay as well in terms of economic vibrancy, particularly as we're recovering from Cyclone Gabrielle. And I guess last is the region-wide input to purpose, vision and strategic priorities, which is what this is about. So the master plan is about to recommence what everyone is really keen to get is to make sure is that we've got a regional strategic input to point us in the right direction as we get into this master planning process. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so master plan part 1, and I was involved in this in my old role here. So it started in July 2021. It was a partnership between those organisations there. A consultancy called Global Leisure Group were engaged to complete the project. They spent a bit of time working on it. There was 2 issues that fell out pretty early on. One was that additional land requirements to address site constraints were required. So really our ability to grow, our ability to expand was constrained by the amount of available land. And the governance structures on the park with the 2 trusts was viewed at, actually this needs a bit of a looking at. So due to those 2 fundamental matters, the project was halted in April 22 while those matters were investigated. They gave us an interim report in August of 2022. And since then, the northern block, as we're terming it, which is the block of land between Evenden Road and the existing sports park, which is currently, it's got sheep on it at the moment, I think, has been purchased for the purposes of the sports park. Yes. Yeah. So that's really exciting, and it's a big chunk of land that we can use. We haven't worked out quite the best way to use it as yet, and that'll be one of the key outputs of the master plan. And also there was some work done to investigate the merger between the 2 trusts, which is not completely off the table, but it got to a certain point, and right now they had a new GM start about the same time that I did, and Brendan and I are working together as well as we possibly can for the park. And there's a question already, which I thought there might be. Yeah.
Thanks, Glenn. Just a question. When the Global Leisure Group did that project and identified one of the key constraints being the space, the land, saying now that we've purchased that northern block, but we're not quite sure what we need for it, what was the land constraint if we're not sure how we're going to use the land we've purchased?
That's a little bit before my time. Do you want to get that one, Tanya?
Was it sort of more generic around growth, or was there a specific sporting code?
There was an opportunity. The land was available. To get into some specific details, the owners wished to remain on site. They couldn't subdivide, and the only neighbouring block was the sports park. So it was essentially a boundary adjustment, which allowed them to sell the land to the council.
Yeah, no.
So it was an opportunity that arose. It's been zone deferred sports grounds. So the opportunity arose.
And that sounds good. So when the leisure group did their review and found that a constraint to the development of the park was land, were they saying it was a constraint because lack of land, or were they saying there was a need that we couldn't fulfill on the current site?
Graham?
I will add to your response.
Yeah. When Global Leisure did their investigation, it was quite obvious there was a large number of other sports who wanted or were looking forward to an opportunity to go to the park, and there was no way that those sports could be accommodated under the current land constraint. So there's a number of other sports who are still in the picture that would like to be there, but there was no land available for them. And there were other issues around movement around the park, constraints. Parking is a major constraint, and so to overcome some of those things, more land was required.
So just to take up on what Tanya and Graham have said, the interim report that was issued did have a whole bunch of options that could potentially, the land could be used for. That was 2022. There's been quite a lot of changes since then, both in terms of sport and recreation participation and trends. Also, we had the cyclone and that sort of stuff as well. So there's been a lot of priorities that have changed. A lot of that stuff may still be valid, but the focus of the master plan moving forward is validating, retesting some of that information and trying to work out actually what other priorities are there now or what were missed at that stage, so that we can make a best decision as possible to use that land for the benefit of, making our community move more, basically.
Just clarifying, is that land bordering the expressway? Is it like right on the expressway?
The expressway and Evenden Road, yes.
Okay, will that affect what it can be used for if it's right next to traffic? I mean, like, will that affect the sport codes or not?
The park, a lot of the park already does border the expressway. There won't be any driveways or anything like that coming from the expressway, so it should be okay. We'll still be coming in from the same sort of way as currently. Okay, so that leads us to Master Plan Part 2.
I must admit, as a trust, we were so delighted that the decision to purchase the land was made before Cyclone Gabrielle struck. Because to be quite honest, I don't think council would have stepped into that space without the environment that all councils are in Hawke's Bay. So small blessings, big blessings.
Yes, okay, so Master Plan Part 2, so that's a priority that I was charged with when first setting into this role. So we got to the point now where we are ready to commence with the Master Plan. So the Master Plan includes a lot of the scope that was included in Part 1, but there's also a few things that to me weren't in the scope of that need to be considered moving forward. So principally among them is a cultural narrative. At the moment, as Tanya's so fond of saying, you could pick up that entire park and put it in England, for argument's sake, and there's, it would still function as the way it said. There's no story of place, there's no representation of who we are and of mana whenua and that kind of thing. So the development of a cultural narrative is absolutely fundamental to moving forward with the Master Plan. A traffic assessment, looking at safety, looking at wayfinding, looking at parking, that's already underway as a strand of the Master Plan, because it's such a, you look at the online thing and all of the feedback that we receive from our users, it's one of the key things that comes up over and over again. Informal recreation and play is also a really big priority. At the moment, the perception of the park is that it's a place where you go for high performance sport or organised sport. It's not necessarily a place that's recognised for informal recreation and play, and there is so much that could be added there in terms of bringing family down, throwing a frisbee, having some passive and active recreation down there at the park. So that's a huge area of potential. Environmental sustainability is really important. Landscaping and planting is critical. And following on from Cyclone Gabrielle, which the park did play a role in housing emergency workers, emergency response preparedness is really important to be factored in. So, what is our role to play in future events? Yes, please.
The sense of having a place to go and play is really important for me. And one of my greatest visions lately was we were going to the sports park to watch the Ranfurly Shield game. As you know, it had been horrendously wet. And as Andy and I drove in, there was a woman, I think she had 5 or 6 Labradors. And there's detention areas on the park that are designed to hold water during a flood event or a rain event and slowly let the water out into the drains. And she was running. She didn't have any clothes on. I'm sure she was cold, but she was hurtling through the water and the dogs were running after her and having such fun. And that to me captures about the essence of what we want this park to be, not just the organised sports, but places where people just go to have fun. Mums taking their preschoolers for a picnic, sitting under the shade of a tree. Just a passive and active recreation space is really important.
So I think we had a question for clarification, which was the same question that popped into my head as well. Does that lady was wearing no clothes?
No, she didn't have many clothes.
Oh, right. I was going to say.
Many with a M, not any. She didn't have many clothes. Shorts and one of those fitted type top things.
Just see that advertisement, naked romping with dogs.
That's one bit.
Well, it's an option.
Yeah.
We could arrange volunteer.
We could add it to our video, promotional video.
Rhonda, did you want to do it?
Take it away from Glengarry Road.
If you want to scare people off, very deco.
That's the road she wants.
Deco. Very deco.
Get the Nudie Rudy Club.
There might be some land down the bottom of Glengarry Road.
Put that in the video.
Okay, so I promise that we're close to actually the point where we're engaging you and getting your input. So this is the last slide before we get into the workshop component of the session. So this is really just identifying why we were set up in the first place. So 2008, the trust deed was written and adopted. This is what it says, but the key bits from here are, can you read that? Develop and maintain land and facilities. I can't read that on screen. Improve public fitness and well-being.
Well-being.
Yep. Enhance economic growth, employment and development opportunities. Organised and informal sporting and recreational activities. So those were the things. It's all very functional. It does what it says on the tin. So there's nothing that's really surprising around there. But I think the key thing that when you lift out those things and when you're looking at wrestling with the master plan going forward and being able to make decisions as to where we use our finite resources to deliver whatever it is that we do to our community, is clarity on the outcome areas and where the relative priorities of those outcome areas are. I had 3 possible outcome areas, which I did a similar-ish session with Hastings District Council. They added a couple of outcome areas to this. So today I've got 5 outcome areas for you. There might be something that both HTC and I have missed, so I'm really, really keen to put those in front of you to see what you think and get your thoughts as to whether it's inclusive or whether there's something else that you want to look at. And then the session will be around, okay, if we've got these 5, 6, 7 priorities, where do the relative priorities of each of those sit, which will help us to point in the right direction for the master plan. So no surprise, community wellbeing is one of the outcome areas. Economic vibrancy is another, so the contribution that events bringing families, bringing a whole lot of people to the Hawke's Bay contribute to our economy. The high performance aspect, and I want to be clear that high performance in this outcome area is around developing champions, Hawke's Bay champions, so developing our young people to achieve on the world stage. The event side of, because you could say that bringing, say, the Black Sticks to the park or bringing New Zealand track and field champions is high performance, but I'd put that in the economic vibrancy bucket, not the high performance bucket. So just a point of clarification.
So for me, for this one, it's about young hockey players, for example, playing on a international standard turf, or young runners and athletes being able to, on their weekly practice on a track that's appropriately certified. And it's really cool that we do have athletes that are doing that. And I think of your Napier Dom Dixon in the Black Sticks at the Olympics.
And Sean Finlay.
And Sean Finlay.
Two Nick boys.
Yeah. So it shows that we can do it from here in Hawke's Bay.
Yeah.
Just a question. The word play, could you include that in the wellbeing, like recreation/play?
Yes, very much so.
Because play is really important, and that would just make it more.
I couldn't agree with you more. So yes, let me add that. You remember that one?
Yep,
Yes.
I'll remember.
Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree
Yes.
completely.
And it is a national priority from Sport New Zealand and Sport Hawke's Bay and that sort of stuff in terms of play being fundamental to kids, developing the movement skills and that sort of thing to be able to participate in sport and recreation. So yes,
Yeah,
for sure.
because mum's turning up with their little kids and they want to play somewhere, so it's not just about clubs, not just about high-end sport, it's about the whole family, not just the club. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's part of the information we want to extract from you.
So these blue ones were the ones that HDC added, and I think they were really really good additions. So the first one was education and career pathways, which is our responsibility or our role in developing rangatahi so they can have meaningful careers in sport and recreation or play or whatever the relevant industry is. And equally, if not more importantly, is mana whenua relationships. So establishing authentic partnerships with iwi, hapu and marae to inform all areas of strategy and operations. Those are our 5, which says 3 at the top, but 5 outcome areas. I should really have proofread this before we sat down. So from your guys' perspective, and you are very, very used to throwing around concepts of outcomes and strategies, because that's what, that's what drives long-term plans and that sort of thing for council. How complete are those? Is there anything missing? What are your thoughts on those 5 outcome areas, knowing Mitre 10 Park or Hawke's Bay Regional Sports Park Trust and what we do?
This might sort of inherently be covered in the community wellbeing outcome you already have, but I'm just wondering about that accessibility element, and particularly if you're trying to promote it as a place for everyone, not just for, structured sports activities, and that it is somewhere that is accessible to everybody to go and utilise, and whether, perhaps either maybe tease out the community wellbeing one a little bit more as opposed to being a separate outcome.
Yeah, thank you. No, I agree, absolutely. Yeah, and accessibility is such a good word that covers cultural barriers,
affordability, physical barriers. It really does cover.
For sure.
Yeah.
Once again, I agree. And if I speak to some whānau from Blacksmere or Camberley or Mayfair, they don't see that as their space. So we have work to do. We know we've got work to do in making it their space, so it's accessible for them to go and play, and their sense of this is my space. And I was introduced to the concept, is it the third space or fourth space?
Third place, yeah.
Third place.
Yeah,
so you have a place where you live, and you have a place where you work or at school, and then there's a third space where you go and enjoy your life. You play, you do sport, so the third place. And it's a sense of what we'd like this place to be for everyone.
And your comments about those suburbs in Hastings not feeling like it's their space, I would think there's a significant number of people in Napier.
Yes.
We've still got those, barriers around recognising and treasuring our regional assets. So I think there is still very much parts of our community here who perceive that to be Hastings, and probably think, well, I'm not going to go there. It's in Hastings.
Yeah.
So that breaking down that perception that it's just a Hastings space. It's a space for people from all over Hawke's Bay.
Yeah.
And if we together do this strategy correctly, we'll then have some outcomes to drive ourselves towards, and we may need to work more closely with Napier City Council to break down those barriers. But essentially, we're trying to come to you with a relatively blank sheet of paper and some high-level outcomes that we'll tweak with some extra words. Accessible and play are the 2 words I've picked up. So, thank you.
Chad.
You mentioned earlier when the lady was running through the water with not many clothes.
No, it's about dogs. It's about dogs.
There's areas where it holds the water, and so maybe environmentally friendly, might be able to hold stormwater and something like that.
Just on that point, cycle lanes, like can you get to it by bike from Hastings or Napier?
No, connectivity is a bit of an issue.
Yeah, so the connectivity would be a good one.
Cycle and bus at the moment is not that flash. So yes, that's a definitely an outcome of the master plan. Annie?
One of the things that I think the park does very well that I'm not seeing represented, I guess, in the outcome areas is around that domestic sporting tourism. So it's like around developing a national reputation for excellence and hosting sporting code tournaments and things like that. And I see we have, the flow-on effect of that, which is economic vibrancy in the communities, but actually the reputation of the park itself to hold and host and sort of be seen nationally as the place that you would want to hold your sporting code tournaments and things like that. You're doing all that work now, but is it represented in your outcomes?
Yeah, good question. I think the economic vibrancy to me is that bucket.
Yeah.
But it's the how to get there could be stronger.
And maybe it's the reputation or it's the
let's massage the words a little bit to
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
my
it down,
feedback.
Lynette.
Well, maybe just taking that a little bit further, it's actually when you look at high performance, developing champion individuals, it actually starts before that, doesn't it?
Explain a little bit further, Nigel.
Well, I mean, what you're trying to do is you're trying to encourage people to become champion performers. That statement says developing champion individuals, whereas what you want to do is be developing people to become champions. And I just think that wording's just a little bit elevated.
A bit clunky, though.
Well, not clunky, it's just elevated. Whereas what you're trying to do is embrace all athletes to get them to that champion status.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes, I think I understand what you're saying, and I think also what Annette was saying, and around the high performance events provides some inspiration for some of the young ones too, to be able to see the top New Zealand athletes, to see not that Valerie Adams is competing anymore, but those kind of people.
Some people are really fortunate. They're performed. They're born really able. Others have to develop their skills and their capabilities. And part of that is not just individual, it's also about developing as a team member and developing your skills around other people's skills and development. So it's quite a broad concept, that high performance.
There's a bit of a overlap between what Annette's saying about the reputation of being a great place to hold international or national events. And part of being able to do that provides the opportunity for young athletes to aspire to be champions. So, by having the national swimming champs there, which, it's a fast pool, and they're going to have the pre-Olympic selection or next lot, it gives young swimmers from Hawke's Bay the opportunity to aspire to be a champion. So it's a bit convoluted, but
Seeing Valerie Adams there throwing the shot put and seeing young shot putters watching her, it's just magic. Actually, it was quite magic, just me watching.
I've got a question. Just, I know when we did a tour with Graham, he talked a lot about rangatahi and getting them in there at a young age to inspire them. Where does that fit in there? Because it's got education, but that's relating to vocations. And I know there's a huge barrier for some schools to even physically get to the park. They don't have buses, they don't have anything to get the children there to experience the thing. So it's all great to have a international swimming thing, but if you're not there to see it, you are not inspired.
So just to clarify, you spoke of Graham. Are you meaning Sir Graham Avery?
Yeah.
Came and presented to you rather than...
Not this Graham.
Not this Graham?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. We went and did a tour.
Yes.
And we went through the accommodation and he gave us, and then he spoke to us about, trying to get the young people. That was one of the reasons for the accommodation, I thought, was to bring them in.
have
Yeah.
camps,
Yeah,
on-site
have
camps.
camps. Is that happening or is that something that's in here?
Tanya?
No, it's not happening
Okay.
because can I just take the Sports Trust hat off and put the Hastings Council hat on? We had the same presentation. At the moment, the hostel seems to be used mostly by elite athletes, by sports teams. Post-cyclone, it was used by fire and emergency that came from outside. It's been well utilised. One of the questions I do ask myself is, if we had X amount of dollars spare, would it be better investing in a minibus for the park that would enable us to break down that transport barrier that exists? So that question I would like to think will be answered as we go through this process, because I agree with you, there are barriers to rangatahi accessing this park. Economic barriers, cultural barriers, as we spoke about. This park doesn't look like what my whenua should look like. I feel disconnected. There's nothing of my culture reflected here. and if I don't play a organised sport, I'm not sure if I'm welcome. The Community Fitness Centre Trust does run programs and does bring children from a multitude of schools into the community fitness area and works with them. Absolutely. And Community Fitness Centre, I also think, travels through to Wairoa, taking leaders to Wairoa and bringing children down. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, I just see, you know, as a, say like you're at Tutira School and you're a really good athlete, but you never get to run on a track. How are we bringing in these kids? Because I'm a real believer in that, you know, play sports, stay out of court, all that thing. It sometimes comes down to who your parents are rather than how you know, what you're exposed to. And I think there's a real lack of that in our community of getting these, everyone a chance to have a go on a track and think, oh, I quite like doing that.
Once again, I agree. So my test is, if these outcomes are full and are complete, and then we start to aspire to them and we fully fund them and we do the doing, would that capture that example of a rural school getting to the park?
And I was just throwing in.
But yeah, those that are currently not connected. So that's where I think, well, these outcomes, if we met all of these outcomes, would that cover those concerns?
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Tanya. The thing that keeps standing out of my mind is they're all excellent outcomes, and it sounds like, in my mind, a lot of the offerings that we're making today actually fit within them. You know, it's a tweak, or it could be an indicator of an outcome almost. The thing that stands out in my mind, though, is the I guess that overt commitment to a planned, sustainable approach to the asset management and making sure that it grows as needed to be able to continue to support these outcomes. So I'm not quite sure how you would want to put that together, but I think it speaks to what Annette was saying around the reputation side of things, around what you were saying with high performance, with accredited track, etc. I think knowing what we know about investment, about what LTAs are looking for, what central government are looking for, I think having an outcome like that and having it underpin this stuff is probably really important as you look to develop.
I like it. Maintaining the assets of the park at that X level to uphold the reputation for something like that. So asset management, yes, I gosh, I'm agreeing lots.
So I will.
Adding that one down.
I think you're absolutely right, Sally. And ever since we started thinking about the master plan, the asset management and the ability for us to develop and maintain the assets at the right level to deliver these things has been pretty front of mind. I guess my question is where it sits with the outcome areas which are focused on community outcome areas, and where that one's actually what we do to support those things. But I think it does have to be in there somewhere, without a doubt. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like, we all know it's a truth that needs to happen, and operationally it's something that should just be BAU. But unless you actually put it in your strategies and say it overtly, it
needs to be intentional. Yes, without a doubt. Yes. Finis, you had a comment, mate?
Thank you. And I agree with Ms. Sally 100%. Those 5 looks really good. But I want to go maybe a step further than what Sally was talking about, and that's the finances of the. Do you have a thought around the outcome for your finance of corporate income and
yes.
Or do you cover it within your 5 outcomes?
I think again it's one of those pillars to develop it, to delivering on these outcome areas. So within the master plan there'll be a focus on these in terms of what we want to do with the community, and that will help us to focus, okay, we're going to focus on community wellbeing, therefore this is the asset that we'll build, but that will be underpinned by things like making sure that we use whole of life planning, for argument's sake, for our assets, and also the financial strategy that drives it. I know speaking with funders, speaking with HDC, they are so keen to get the master plan in place. We're looking at a 10-year master plan, which will identify the priorities, the key developments. We know that funding is going to be tight for the next 3 years or so, so it might be year 4, year 5, we can start to actually, align ourselves with, whoever it is, whoever the generous benefactors are, to be able to fund some of these priority initiatives that will fall out of it.
May I bounce back a question? If these are our outcomes, then I think having a sound financial plan and management, asset management system in place will enable these to be obtained. So we have to capture that financial management, asset management planning in this document, but maybe not at the level of these high-level outcomes.
Yeah.
Because we can't do this if we don't have a good financial plan and we haven't uphold our asset management.
No. So we'll move into no, we won't. Hayley.
Thanks, and I agree. It feels like those are like the how on how to get to the what. And this one I can't quite work out whether it's a how or a what, but just something around that, and you had it in your list before, the cultural narrative or that's grounding it in this place and that storytelling. And I was wondering, is that on the way to improving the haurua? Haurua. Is that like an on the way to getting that, or should that be more explicit and that's an outcome that we want this place to represent this whenua, our tangata?
Can I start?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
I'm not sure that we've got the wording correct for mana whenua partnerships, because if it's an outcome, we will have those partnerships.
You could have told me that before.
Yeah, I know, but only just as I read it, I just spot. So I think the outcome needs to be stronger than that, and it might be fully connected mana whenua partnerships or something. But and then there's the how we're going to achieve it. And I'll let Glenn talk to you a little bit more about what we're doing in that space.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question you're asking, and the question of whether it's a how or whether it's a what is one that probably I'm wrestling with a little bit as well, because if we get that bit right, that cultural narrative, that story of place, it starts to look at welcoming, belonging, connections, people feeling like they belong here, so reducing some of those barriers to actually being and enjoying the park. So it leads very firmly into community wellbeing. But the how is also through that partnership with mana whenua and how we get develop the story and get gifted the story and make sure everyone's had the chance to engage and get the right one, basically. So I think to me it's a function of those two things, but it's worth probably capturing as well to sit down and have a little look through all of this really good feedback that we've got from you.
Yeah, just hearing that, maybe it is around the accessibilities that Kirsten brought up, that that's the outcome, that we feel that everyone feels that this is a place to call home, and the partnerships is the how. Yeah.
Something as all Hawke's Bay folk feel connected to the park. I mean, I know that's a bit wishy-washy. And then the how is the creation of partnerships, accessibility. For me, partnerships is linking with not just Hastings. We have a Hastings Disability Reference Group. Napier will have a similar, but being able to connect across. When we speak of mana whenua, it's not only the local Waipatu marae, which we're part of their rohi. It's not just Heretaunga tai whenua, but it's the iwi, all of the tai whenuas, all of the hapus and maraes that are connected, and it's being able to work with all rather than some. And so that's why up here it says establishing, but I think the outcome will be strongest partnerships.
Yeah, just on the connectivity thing, I think that is key, because if you can't get there, you can't use it. If you can only get there by car, what's the point? You know, if you can't get there by bus or cycle, whatever, if it's only people in cars, and it's kind of ironic because it's sport, so you kind of want people to be healthy as well. So I think connectivity is a big one. You've got to be able to get there first.
Yeah, accessible.
Is that an outcome, connectivity to all communities?
I think it probably goes to accessibility,
Yeah.
which is what Kirsten was saying before, but yes, I again, I agreed.
Yeah, last few words I've written down are connected to this place and connectivity. That's, yeah.
So I'm really keen to move on to the input part of the workshop, but is there any sort of final comments or questions or additions, amendments before we get into it? Okay. So we wanted to do something a little bit different to what you are used to. I know you've just gone through your long-term planning process where you had a whole bunch of people come in asking you for money. We are going to be giving you money. So
Can I be your helper today?
oh yes, please.
I know who these
That one's Graham. But I wouldn't.
Have we got Keith online?
No, it doesn't look like it.
No.
So I was going to give
No,
him his
Keith,
money to
Keith is online.
He is online?
He's online?
So this money does need to be spent in this room, though. I wouldn't try taking it to the cafe next door or getting a coffee afterwards. So
There is.
Councillor Price, are you able to hear us?
Like, am I supposed to give these to the right person?
no, it doesn't
No,
matter.
these
No,
are
they're
it's a
all
mixture.
random. Yeah.
Bribery and corruption.
Indeed. Indeed.
Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me, Pete?
Oh yes, okay.
Oh, yes.
Oh, there he
And
is.
Keith's money,
Oh,
you'd like
Hi,
it
Kate.
spent?
Yes, all right. I've got
His ward councillor will take care
This
of
is
it.
hilarious.
Kia ora, Keith. I've got
I
your
might give you a
money.
call separately once we get into the workshop to get your input.
Thank
I
you.
got American dollars. So what we're doing, each of you should have $10. If I've made a mistake and you've got $11, please be honest and give the dollar back, because we don't want to be putting our finger on the thumb. So we've got the 5 outcome areas, and please remember the really valuable additions that you guys have made. So obviously the wording up here won't reflect the additions that you've made. But what I want you to do, you've got 10 $1 notes. You can invest them into those 5 outcome areas however you want. So you can put $10 all into one, or you can divvy them up as much as you want. But yeah, have a think about it. Have a walk up here. Have a look at the 5 outcome areas, and then put your dollars down. Put your money where your mouth is. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Tanya and I will be here to help out, and I'll also give Keith a call to, you can see the screen, can't you, Keith? So have a think about how you divvy up 10 across those 5 outcome areas.
Richard, I got 2 of you.
I got 2 Gregos.
I've got about 5,
Am
Judy.
mine hundreds?
I got 2 Andes.
I've got 2 Chads.
You're a negative 2s on
I
mine.
haven't got 1 Grego.
You haven't got a Grego.
Do you want it? I'll trade you a Grego for a.
Which one have you? Have you got a
I got one of myself.
No, I haven't got a chat. I'll have a chat.
Grego for a
I
Chad?
got one of Maxine. Oh my God.
That's what they mean by old money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So disturbing.
This is pre-decimal coinage.
Sally?
What is that?
Oh, I think I've got 2 Sallys.
Your money, yep. Well, I'm going to call Keith right now.
Oh, no, Annie's
Oh, you're going to have
Oh,
a
and
Chad. I didn't hear you.
got Keith's
No.
money.
Oh,
There you
don't
go.
need to worry.
This is hilarious.
No, which one we did.
Take a photo of it.
So good.
You could ask Keith.
Fish, fish.
Before you give it away, take a photo of my own. Yeah. Right. Now follow the instructions.
So do you-
I can do it just.
summary of
Yep.
your-
Yep. If it aligns. But if it aligns,
Stay home and read a book and chill. Yeah.
This is so much cooler than what we did at Hastings.
Oh, really?
We've got 5. Couple of bucks there. Way I've done it in the past is 5 seconds, like 1
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. No, the day I went,
I'll do a bit of bar.
And yours the $5 each. No.
Interesting, isn't it? How people spread it.
Yes, and sometimes it will be deliberately spread.
Trying to keep myself.
Going to put the whole lot in one place because that four-letter word play.
Yeah. The one that you think most of.
Yeah. What was the?
Yes, give us a percentage, guys.
205 million. Really think about it.
Are you cold as well? Are you unwell? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to do a quick hand.
Poor thing. Sound like you.
And the bus.
Yep.
What was that?
But that's probably pre-Gabriel.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Where they're at as far as finalising the establishment of the routes, I don't know.
They probably don't know.
Yeah. The actual funeral day.
Or maybe you guys need to have louder discussions with Go-Bus or the regional council while they continue to exist.
Because what was that system they had over there? Was that Go-Bus with the cup?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that didn't work, didn't it?
No, it became too expensive because it was too popular.
It was the cutting that took ages. That was one of the discussions. Was, sports teams could say, well,
Is there a $50?
They-
No, there
Yeah,
should
but
all be
the
$1.
problem with that service was it was small.
Oh, Graham's is the same. Graham's is still
Yeah,
$1.
for a team,
Yeah,
you'd-
his
you'd
currency
get a-
is good.
a big thing.
Big bus, yeah.
I've been writing.
Depending on the sport.
Yeah.
Can I read you my favourites?
It's only
Five.
my favourite line. Well, usually you have a couple of subs.
I was going to say, as soon as you put your subs, your manager and your coach in, it's the size of a minivan.
I've often thought, because exactly. If, as a volunteer thing, but I can only get, 11, but I would take kids over there to sport if someone asked me to, how do we do that better? I think of the schools in Maranui and stuff that those kids, their barrier is getting to the sport and having the equipment and uniforms and stuff to play the sport.
Well, thanks for being an example in my age. It's
Yeah.
the closest something to be. Barry. But there was a sort of point.
There's a point of appearance. That's right. Oh, maybe I could weave that in.
Yeah, I just can't recall.
I go along the, with the expressway.
I don't know. There's a point of appearance number one speaking.
Well, it's because it joined Mahi Road.
I've got it.
Kia ora te whānau. Drum roll, please. Firstly, we have donated that money to the Napier City Council slush fund. Hayley's looking after all of that money for you,
We don't have a slush.
and you don't need to return it to us. There's no receipts
Some
involved.
jazz.
The highest scoring was economic vibrancy, contributing to the local economy through hosting sporting and cultural events that attract visitors to Hawke's Bay and showcase our region to the rest of New Zealand and the world. Followed by high performance, which is the sense of developing, using Nigel's words, developing individuals to become champions and to win on the world stage. And then the third one was community wellbeing, picking up that important word play. So those are the three highest scores. And that's really important for us as a trust to understand that one of our most significant partners, Napier City Council, we'd like that energy to go as we develop the park into the future.
Can I just make a comment? That Glenn talked to me about this at the beginning of the week and told me what the outcomes that he had at that stage. And I said, well, I reckon it'll go blah. And I was well out.
That really surprises me that that's where we ended up.
Yep. That's
community
just-
wellbeing would well and truly come out on top.
And that's what I told Glenn. I said, it'll all be in community wellbeing, mana whenua partnerships. And you've got
Someone want to
economic
maybe have a
vibrancy
guess
and
at interpreting why that came out so strongly?
Which one?
I can, I'll just talk for me.
The economic
Okay,
vibrancy?
if I could,
did the same, like that's how I divvied up my money. I was thinking about the network that we have regionally and the other sports fields, parks, etc. In my mind, that's the sports parks lane. It is the high performance stuff. The high performance stuff is activated by having good asset management, by having availability and access to the high performance structure and gears and everything so that people can excel. And I think probably because of the current economic environment, what we've been through in the last 3 to 4 years, we know that economic vibrancy is actually a really important well-being for our community at the moment. So I still think we were thinking of the community when we were spending that money in those pots. But actually, at the moment, that's what we know to be true. Those are the areas, and high performance is, I think the lane of the sport park.
just out of interest, the score was 27 for economic vibrancy, 26 for high performance, so very close, and then 24 for community wellbeing.
So they're
all quite close.
I was all over the community.
But I think there's a number of answers there. One is our economy, our Hawke's Bay economy won't grow unless other people bring new money into the economy. That's where that is important. That new money will contribute to maintaining the assets, which is what Sally's been alluding to. But more importantly, I think we have to be really careful about over-expanding. And what I mean by that is both councils already provide some excellent sports reserves. Large tournaments or international events that might be happening at the sports park need those other parks to run their preliminary games and activities. And so we have to see that the status of the parks and reserves that we hold locally act as feeder parks. You know, if you're running a major tournament, there aren't enough paddocks at the sports park. So therefore, the sports park has to promote that it's got access to our parks and reserves for major sports tournaments, and the finals or quarterfinals are held at the sports park. And so we've got to see it as a triangle of support and contribution rather than creating a single point of excellence, because that will also assist us in understanding what level we need to maintain our sports parks and reserves locally to support the regional park.
I love that, Nigel. Thank you.
I've captured that because that should be very easy for us to do.
Yes, and I think for us, like following on from Nigel, the community wellbeing, I saw as, I probably did the same order as that, just like Sally, because again, yes, we provide it in our cities ourselves, and that's the go-to for most people. Going to the regional sports park is something, I wouldn't just go there to take my kids to have a play. I certainly wouldn't go there and walk my dog, because we've got those facilities in other places. I'd rather go and walk along the Marine Parade to walk my dog and take my kids to a playground than to the regional sports park, because that's not, it is a facility to do other things. And I think sometimes you've got to stay in your lane and what you're doing, and try and be everything to everybody, because you can't. And that's where we waste a lot of money trying to be everything to everybody. And we've got to work out what is our thing that we want there. And doing those other things, the community wellbeing will come out of that. But I think we provide for community wellbeing within what we provide in our cities.
I've just got a question from Councillor Price. He asked, what were the original proposed outcomes when the park was first developed? Was that work?
Oh, okay, so that goes back to that slide around our objectives. So that slide there.
What about our values that I've got here? Would that help? Those are original values?
Possibly, yeah.
I don't know if he wants to speak to that.
So, so I guess as I sort of went through before, the trust deed is very functional. It does what it says on the tin, but it's got the concepts of economic vibrancy and of community wellbeing very, very firmly in there, as well as some of the how around, developing and administering a regional sports park. So those informed the 5 outcome areas that we've ended up on. But plus, I think it's evolved from there, and there's been a hang of a lot else that have been, been thrown in to represent the 5. Does that answer your question, Keith?
Yeah, no, it's just mainly looking at the fact of, what was bought, and you obviously had outcomes then compared to outcomes now, how it's changed.
Mm.
There must have been some outcomes required when you bought it. Hello?
Hello. So Keith, as you'll know, trust deeds can be really clunky, and depending on who wrote them as to how much is in there about the outcomes. I've been involved in the trust, I think, for the last 8 years, and we've focused, I think, more on what we talk about as the values. And it is a mix of community wellbeing, sporting excellence, and really trying to make sure that this place can be used from the 5-year-old having their first game of Ripper whatever, the first game of netball, right through to our 2 hockey Olympians. And whilst mums and dads are there watching their son run around the athletics or their son play netball or canoe polo, that the other members of the family have a space to do something. That last bit we haven't quite got right yet. And there's always been a desire for a playground of some form near the netball courts. But before we carry on down and put more things, we're doing this very deliberate stop, step back, check in with all our partners. Are our high-level outcomes appropriate? And it's really interesting listening to your comments because they're very refreshing around what is important for Napier City Council. And Rhonda, I get it. The sports park is not going to provide the wellbeing for the community that lives by the beach, that can do yoga on the Marine Parade, walk their dog on Marine Parade. So it will be different things for different people. But is it accessible? Somebody tells me that, for example, this is a good line from years ago, Napier boys can get to the sports park almost more quickly than Hastings boys can. Now that's probably before the expressway starts to get clogged up, and depending on what time of day you travel on the expressway, etc. Or around going across Awatoto there without roadworks. So yeah, I don't know if that's answered your question, Keith.
Yeah, no, good, thank you.
Juliet.
I think there's just one comment I wanted to make from what Rhonda mentioned earlier on about how you get people there to use it. And I think if you go back, and I've found with basketball and things like that, it actually requires people like teachers and schools that are strong in that area. So you see a school that is strong, a teacher that teaches a lot of basketball, they're very strong in basketball and vice any other sport. So it's not that easy just to get people along.
Champions.
And as soon as that teacher moves on, it's like a canoe polo is a classic example. If you've got a teacher that's passionate in it, that school is the one winning. As soon as they've gone, all of a sudden another school comes up, and often it is those teachers or leaders or parents that are passionate that lead the school.
Parents is a very important word there.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of, I took note out of what Rhonda said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Juliet.
Yeah, in terms of community wellbeing, I thought that was the most important for me personally, but whole community events like Matariki bring Napier and Hastings together. Now that is magic. That's where you actually feel like you belong in Hawke's Bay, because there's thousands of people, you're having a great time, you have fireworks and you have a party and you dance, and it's when you actually feel like we are all one people. It's like, I'm sounding a bit poetic, but the whole community events at Mitre 10 Sports Park are magic. So I think that is something that could be captured in that.
Yeah, yes, no, I agree. And really nice to hear Tarangi from Ngāti Kahungunu talk about the reason why they do the events and the fact that it is free to their community, because there's a lot of people that maybe can't afford to pay to go to, temple bowling or whatever hang it is. That it's really important to bring that, that maintain that free aspect of it. But yeah, the community connection from it is, beautiful.
Really.
Yeah, I really like what's been said around really like keeping to your lane and thinking about that play aspect. For me, it was like play where it facilitates the high performance sport. So like you're saying, like if you're taking your, 7-year-old to go and play sport and you've got littler kids, that there's playgrounds for them. I think we've talked about that with our other sports parks, eh? So it's about enabling the sports by providing other opportunities rather than let's build a destination playground type of thing. Yeah. So yeah, I think always making sure it's focused on that lane, I think is a...
And I mean, I've got so much from this session, but I think Rhonda's comment there was quite challenging to me in terms of what I was assuming that the park was going to develop. But it's great. I mean, that's why we have these sessions. And I think listening to Tanya as well and listening to what you're saying, I think you guys are right that we're not going to be a destination playground. We're not Anderson Park. But in some way, if those smaller activities can support our primary activity, then yeah.
Well, we've just put a new playground at Park Island, and that's mainly for the little kids that are, the parents are there watching the bigger kids, and the little kids have got something to do.
Great example.
That's the reason that it's there.
Yeah, and it's not just the Saturday morning.
No.
It's the Tuesday and Thursday training.
Yeah.
Where you haven't got time to go home.
Yeah.
But if you sit there with the other kid for an hour, yelling and screaming and getting bored, you've got to have that other option.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. And my comment around a playground was exactly one of those type playgrounds, not a destination playground.
As a mother of three boys who all played sport, it was hard work when one was playing and the other two were...
God knows where.
Having them on a lead.
Can you imagine what would be said to you?
But it was. Put our kids in the car without seatbelts.
Oh, no.
Any other thoughts or
Harness on the back
to
seat.
provide, Tim?
Yes, I am conscious of time, and now taking more of your time. I just had a really quick wrap up in terms of.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, please.
I'm going to take my Napier Council hat off and put the sports park hat on. It's been really good for me to hear as well, because one of the things that has been an ongoing issue is car parking, the driveways around there. It's just a mess, really. But that's because development has been ad hoc. And so for me, one of the big takeaways for me is that this master plan, if that's what this park is going to become, this master plan has to focus on accessibility, but also traffic movement, as Glenn has said, and we've already started work on that. Traffic movement and parking within the facility that provide safety, because if you're going to have national and international events there, then it's got to be easy to get in and get out. And I went to Matariki and I ended up parking halfway down Evandon Road and walking. So yeah, thank you.
I was going to make a comment about buses and public transport, but I won't.
Well, the other
Probably
thing
all
is
know
that
what you were
we're
going to
also,
say.
And I'm on the regional transport committee, so.
that we're also getting information about four-laning of the expressway. So how does that work in with our master plan for the park as well?
Brilliantly.
Yeah.
Okay, so really quick wrap up. This has been fantastic. It's really helped us to point in the right direction. Obviously, NCC is a really key critical stakeholder. We've got your input at the start, which is great. We also, my plan is, if Venus ticks the box, is to have Steve as a representative on the project steering group for the master plan process, which includes the cultural narrative and the master plan. And I would take your steer in terms of would you like us to come back sort of halfway through to give you a little bit of a, hey, this is where we're heading? We'll definitely come back at the end when we've got a draft, but would you like a bit of an update as well? A bit of a...
I think that would be good. Yep.
Easy.
A bit of a procedural question, just thinking about, we're doing a McLean Park reimagining at the moment, and they feel like they're playing in the same space, aren't they, around big events and high performance sport. Procedurally, how are we going to make sure that we're aligned? We'll start. One question.
Yes, very good question. We are in discussion with HDC, and I've just spoken with Steve about the involvement of the regional park in discussions, because we have been talking about a few things that is going to happen there or at McLean Park, or not, and exactly your point, Natanya, that we don't duplicate.
Well, isn't Sport Hawke's Bay doing an overarching regional sports facility master plan type project
They've almost
as well?
finished the facilities and the sports field, so there's two strategies that they're very close to finishing. And the guys that we're looking to engage for our master plan are the same guys that did that.
Oh,
so
good.
it's all that information that exists.
Great.
If I can just quickly jump in very quickly. So through our stakeholder process with McLean Park, we included HDC with respect to the sports parks, and having Sport Hawke's Bay involved as a stakeholder as well, that whole regional framework is very front of mind. You know, including PGA. Yeah, everybody that's involved in the sport landscape has been involved in that, and I think the key thing for us, as you all know, is the financial sustainability of all these assets, and that's further to Sally's points as well. And that, I mean, I've got a meeting with Sport Hawke's Bay and Sport New Zealand next week to discuss that very point. So it is very front of mind.
I can speak for the trust. We don't want to take on McLean Park for events. There's events that suit McLean Park, there's events that suit the sports park, there's events that suit Anderson Park. And it's making sure that we don't stand on each other's toes, that we are connected from the beginning, and the conversations, we just put Hawke's Bay first and try and work out what the best way of moving forward together. Because nobody wins if we start clashing and start duplicating. So we're really aware. We've got the Magic Graham sitting on our Sports Park Trust. He adds incredible value. We're looking at getting changes in some trustees. We've got a Napier City Councillor, Grego, is sitting on that appointments panel. That appointments panel does not belong to the trust. It's an independent panel. So we'll just keep working together. Glenn is obviously highly connected into your council, and it's been a huge advantage for us.
So I recall Des Ratama was involved in the beginning. I thought he was providing some cultural guidance or something, but since his passing, maybe he wasn't replaced or anything like that.
So one of the original trustees was Nahiwi Tamona, and Nahiwi, we extended his trustee position. He had completed his 3 terms. We extended it to keep him on board while we hosted Matariki. We have Henry Hickey. He was appointed as a trustee, not representing mana whenua, but just with his skills, and then he became a Hastings councillor. We are working very closely with Thompson Hokianga. I can let you explain. You went and had the conversation with Baden and the iwi about Thompson and what we're going to hopefully do with Thompson. Or do you want me to?
Oh,
Me? Okay.
About promising too much before it's happened. But
we're working really closely with Thompson Hokianga, and the iwi has written to us and asked if they could have a position on the trust as well. And I think that's whether those 2 statements get joined up, it's not for us to decide who the future trustees are. Yeah. And also, from my point of view, I would love to have a young Manawahine come through onto the trust. So as we go through rollover with trustees, an appointments panel is called for and there will be advertising. So watch this space.
Richard.
So, just going back, and I don't want to use the word stepping on one another's toes. There's been a rumour around for a couple of years that the sports park was going to put an international cricket ground in, and they were going to purchase land for it. Is there any connection with the land that's been purchased to the thoughts of an international cricket ground?
Okay.
Or any other land purchase?
Speaking as a Hastings councillor, the land was always earmarked years ago for an extension of the sports park trust. So so that it was zoned years and years ago, possibly when the sports park itself was bought on, but that's when it was earmarked. And it was purchased recently because the family wanted to sell the land. So completely separate. I hear there's aspirations of cricket people that would like, but the answer at the moment from me wearing the chair of the Sports Park Trust hat is, hang on, we're going to go through a strategic plan. You have a relationship elsewhere at the moment. Look, we're just not just talking about it. There's other sports that would like to be there. Netball would like to move there and tennis would like to take over where netball is and bowls would like to go there and BMX. I mean, they all would like to be there, but the reality of any of it coming to fruition is going to take a lot of work. And first we'll do this master plan with our partners, because I completely agree with you. We don't want to stand on others' toes.
Can I just add to that, that when they opened the boxing and the indoor cricket facility, New Zealand Cricket were there, and New Zealand Cricket have an aspiration to have these boutique test venues. It's their aspiration, nobody else's.
Yeah. But good, thanks, Richard. Good question.
Just quickly through the McLean Park, Lance Hamilton was one of our stakeholders that we interviewed, and nothing is happening in the near future. So I think we can almost put that to bed.
And I'll just add to that, the indoor greenhouse, if you like to call it, New Zealand Cricket wanted to have something like 7 of those based around New Zealand. They've now reduced how many because they can't afford them. So there is one here, which is great for us, but where they were going to do others around New Zealand, they've now withdrawn because they don't have the money to do it. So I wouldn't worry too much about cricket's expansion at this stage.
Right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Anything further from anyone? No? Look, I think that was really, really great to be able to sit with you and provide our thoughts and input. You can take that away and looking forward to you checking back in with us partway through the process. So, yeah, that's for the benefit of all of our communities, obviously. So an amazing asset that we want to ensure we're maximising the utilisation and achieving the best possible outcomes that we can. So, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
You might want to add in too that I wouldn't be keen to drive across there if there was a toll road for me to get there. Very keen to drive on 4 lanes, even with a cycleway with it. I won't be paying toll.
You can take your scooter on the cycle. Like
I can.
Right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, just puts roadblocks. But, yeah.
So we had that very clear about the little toll road. Just be fighting that.
So if it makes sense,
Eh?
No expansion.
Hello, Heidi, how are you?
Oh, there'd be a new
No expansion without a toll road.
I tell you what, there'd be a new MP.
I was in the
next
council
time.
workshop that Friday.
Almost guarantee it.
Was it too?
Yeah.
The way
Indoors.
You know, hasn't got online.
We shouldn't have to pay to go to that.
Oh, yeah. They're going to help.
I'll add it to
Well,
my
that's a
list.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's.
No. That's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
What was somebody's absolute question
Well,
or comments? I just want to, what are you doing? That was lovely.
No, you don't.
No, and it was great because you go and play and you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Play.
Okay.
It was great. And it's really interesting that the economic well-being of our
No, thank
community
you.
can support
That's
the
good. Thank you.
community well-being.
Yeah, nice. That was a good session.
Oh, lovely to see you.
Yeah.
So one of the little things I want to do is put a climbing wall on an outside wall. Now, not in that one, but in a cross. So you start at that end and there's a picture on the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Very, very different. I will see you 2:30. Something like that.
That's where we were
Yeah. So,
So have you flicked that through to Ryan? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll do that after lunch, and then because he's going to send the board papers out on probably tomorrow.
Thanks. It's good to see you, team.
Yeah.
I think as long as
Nice to meet you, Tanya.
yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
No, well, flick it through to Ryan and just say, can he send it out with the papers tomorrow? I met up with him yesterday and we went through a couple of things that we've got on the agenda, and he said, oh, well, I'm going to get the papers out on Friday, so it might be good if you just flick it straight through to him so he can get it out. Yeah.
Once we've got the yeah, we'll just come back at that stage. Yeah. Yeah. And whether it's us coming and do, 5 minutes in front of you. Emily. Yeah. And accounts.
Yep. Yep. Oh, that's good. That's how it should be. Good girl. Oh, your boring day job, is it?
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, okay.
So we can't afford to do a whole lot of buses all of the time. We're more likely to.
Yep, got it. Thanks, Heidi. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
And those bus routes.
Soonest, you got a second? Just a second. You see. I got in touch with our man from Over the Ocean Spa. Oh, yes. And he came back with, just
Because that's the main.
Fred, yeah. And then it's like, are you going to listen to us? You're not going to listen. And be open to alternative.
It's not the bus, no, it's not the bus provider.
What?
It's not the bus provider.
I'm sort of.
The funding.
Hey, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Government only funds so much.
He doesn't understand.
Yeah, like
This is what
Yes.
really. Because I really like him.
That dollar is
What I've heard about him, and he's a,
Good
he
thing.
was a good operator.
Yeah.
But he's just lost the plot on this one. And
Yeah.
it's about, like any strategic plan. I mean, it's like these guys, they've got their plan, and they will do it their way.
Yeah.
So, with
What
regard
we are
to
doing, we're ticking
cycle.
all the boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to indicate to him that this was us giving an opportunity to sort of explain that. He just put up a business, oh, well, if you're just going to give us the same story that you've given us before, what's the point? And if you're not going to listen to us, I'm just going to say,
2 kilometres along
just
the
wait.
expressway. Limestone Path.
But I did do it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I really appreciate your willingness to,
What I have done is in the new bus routes, put the sports park on a link. So there is a link that I can't remember where it comes, but it goes from the hospital, the sports park, along the expressway. I think the ERT and Internet. So whether this Ministry Sports Park has a bus stop.
Goes through line by line and reduce the budget.
We're pushing the proverbial motor car uphill.
So I'm pushing for cycle lanes and things in Napier.
Cool.
Because that is the way it helps, you
So,
know. Because if we have to-
Kate's on regional transport.
It's challenging. The whole thing.
I think unless we can cycle there and have this active transport, it's sort of that American model of like going to a place to do exercise in the car.
Oh, yes.
So